Welcome back in. It is the SEMO Scramble here on SEMO ESPN Radio, 1220 AM, 93.5 FM, and online, SEMOESPN.com. Talking a little bit of the MLB Draft. Have Kareem Hawk on. He's a host at the Birds on the Farm. He's also a contributor there at CardinalsProspects.com. You can find his work there. Also part of Dealing with the Cards podcast. So he does a little bit of everything, but a guy that focuses on the Cardinals farm system. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on to talk about the MLB Draft, because he's plugged in. He knows what's going on and has a good indications of, maybe what the Cardinals could do coming up on Sunday in the MLB Draft. So first of all, Kareem, thanks so much, man, for joining me. Again, I wanted to have you on to talk about the draft, which is tomorrow, 5 p.m. on MLB Network and ESPN. I'm excited. How about you?
Yeah, I'm excited as well. This is always my favorite time of the year. Just one day away from the 2025 MLB Draft. The Cardinals will be making 4 selections on day 1 of the draft. So yeah, I'm pumped. Can't wait to see who the Cardinals end up selecting with those 4 picks and, later in the draft on day 2 as well. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on again this year.
Yeah, absolutely. We did it last year, and here coming up, I'll wait a little bit. Whenever we talk about the catching, I want to play a clip from last year, so you're going to kick out of that. But first thing here, look, I've seen a ton of mock drafts, a ton of chatter. I've seen all kinds of different scenarios, but seems like more and more consensus is coming out on who the Cardinals who are taking picking at number 5 might take. It's starting to be more consensus. So how do you see the draft going, though, and who do you think will be available for them at number 5?
Yeah, it seems like the most often connected player to the Cardinals at that 5 overall spot is prep shortstop Eli Willits. He's the son of former big leaguer Reggie Willits. So much like Ethan Holiday, he's got a big league dad, and he's also from Oklahoma. What sets him apart from some of the other prep shortstops in this year's class is that he'll just be 17 years old on draft day, and he won't turn 18 until December. And that's something the Cardinals have targeted when you look at their prep prospects that they have drafted recently. Baseball America had a piece recently, and they mentioned that the Cardinals had the lowest median age among high school draftees since 2020. So I think Willits would fit that sort of mold as a really young high school player that you could project to grow on. And, he's someone that in the present, he's a switch hitter. He's got plus bat-to-ball skills. His contact rates on the circuit were really impressive, especially for his age. He has the ability to handle both velocity and spin for his age, which gives some confidence in his skill set translating to the next level. Defensively, I think there's a chance that he sticks at shortstop and center field. Some of the other top prep shortstops in this class feel more likely to move off that position, whether it be someone like Ethan Holiday, who we can talk about next. But, Eli Willits, I think he's a really good contact hitter, someone that hopefully there's more power projection to dream on. He's got a 6'1" frame. Like I said, he's just 17 years old. So offensively, there might be more potential in there than we initially realized. He seems to be the favorite to be selected by the Cardinals at that 5th overall spot. But, another guy that I think I'll at least mention, left-hand pitcher Jamie Arnold from Florida State. I think much like Willits, we talk about someone that is a player that fits some of the trends that the Cardinals have gone after in the draft recently. He's a low-launch pitcher. He stands at just 6'1", and that's another attribute the Cardinals have coveted in the draft in terms of their pitchers, which is interesting. Guys that are a little bit shorter, that have lower releases, and Arnold fits the bill. He's a low slot lefty. He gets above average extension, and he's got that flat approach angle fastball that the Cardinals seem to covet in the draft. And I think the calling card with him is his mid-80s sweeper. I think it's a pitch that just due to the fact that he has that wide release, it plays even bigger than, the 11.6 inches of glove side movement that it has. It netted a whiff rate of 46.3% last year while holding opponents to just a 216 WOBA. So, Arnold is one of the top pitching prospects in this class. I think he fits, what the Cardinals seem to, target in the draft out of their pitchers. And, if there's one guy in this year's class that I think realistically will be available for the Cardinals at that spot that, I would love for them to pick, I think it's Jamie Arnold.
Yeah, I'm with you, and that's kind of what I've noticed and seen and what the projections say. It looks like, look, there's some good pitchers out there. Kade Anderson, Liam Doyle, those guys probably out off the board. I think the Cardinals would love to get, you mentioned an Ethan Holiday. I think the Cardinals would love to get him. I think he's probably off the board, right? So like you said, then it comes down to most likely the two guys the Cardinals will have to make a decision on. Jamie Arnold, who is the college lefty, like you said, fits them as far as a smaller guy. They love lefties, right? He's a safer pick. And then you have Eli Willits, the high school position player, very young, toolsy. Again, they love the young guys they can try to help mold, right? That's more of a riskier pick. So if you had to pick between the two that the Cardinals will choose, do you think they'd go with the safer pick or the riskier pick in Willits? What do you think?
I think there's been too much smoke on the Eli Willits front for me to just not believe in that. I think that the Cardinals certainly like the player a lot, and if he's available, I feel like he will be the pick ultimately. But at the same time, I think Jamie Arnold is very much still in the mix. And, this year, he was he's my top first-round target. And if history repeats itself, as the Cardinals the past 3 years heading into this year, they selected the player that I targeted with my I coveted with that pick. So if history repeats itself, I think the Cardinals might select Jamie Arnold, but it's seeming more likely that Eli Willits is the direction they'll go if he's available.
Yeah. Personally, I think I kind of mentioned that through email. I would rather get the pitcher. I like Arnold better personally, but I'm curious just for you. If you were making the pick, okay, is it Arnold or someone else? Who's basically, I guess, who's the top guys on your draft board?
Yeah, I think it would be Jamie Arnold for me. I think realistically speaking, I could see the Cardinals picking him, and he's right up on my draft board. I think, between him, Kade Anderson, and Liam Doyle, I don't think you can go wrong with one of the top three college lefties in this year's class. So I definitely would have Jamie Arnold as my, top realistic option for the Cardinals. But another name that I'd like to throw around is Mississippi prep shortstop JoJo Parker. I think that he would probably save you some money with the selection. It seems like he's in play for a lot of teams in the top 5 to 7 picks for an underslot selection. And JoJo Parker, he has one of the best hit tools among the whole high school shortstop class. I think you could make an argument it might be the best overall hit tool in the entire class. He ran a 97.3% zone contact rate during the summer showcase circuit, which was, one of the top marks over there. And, he pairs that with some impressive impact, too. It was a 25% hard hit rate. So I think that just from an offensive standpoint, JoJo Parker is someone that just lights my eyes. I think that this is someone that is going to hit at the next level. There are some questions about where he's going to play, where he fits best long term. He's a shortstop right now, but he's not necessarily the quick twitch athlete that you like to see at that position. I think more than likely he could move over to second or third base, but at the same time, I have more confidence in his bat working out at the next level than some of the other prep shortstops, which gives me more confidence in him just not entirely flaming out. So, he's another guy I'd like to throw around. And if they don't end up going with Arnold, let's say, their top 4 choices, whether it be a Kade Anderson, an Ethan Holiday, an Eli Willits, and Jamie Arnold are unavailable, I think JoJo Parker could come and play as a potential overslot pick at that 5th overall slot.
All right, I like that. I'm going to ask you about one other guy. Look, I could talk about Kade Anderson. I could talk about Ethan Holiday. But look, realistically, again, probably not going to be on the board with the Cardinals. So I'm going to move up to another guy that I think could be there, and a college shortstop, and Aiva Arquette. Any chance the Cardinals could potentially go that route with a big 6'5" shortstop, one of the better hitters in college? And the second part to my question, you kind of alluded to it as well, but as far as the bonus pool money and how they would allocate funds throughout the draft, how do you think that affects things as far as how the Cardinals could pick and choose guys? Would they, like you said, maybe they would choose a JoJo over that because maybe they could get him for a lower money pool. So how do you think the money factors in, and then could Arquette be a guy they could look at?
I haven't heard Aiva Arquette's name, in discussion for the Cardinals at that 5 spot. That isn't coming from any inside sources, but just, reading the tea leaves based on all the mock drafts and the reporting. It doesn't seem like the Cardinals are crazy on that player at that 5 spot, but he is my top-ranked college position player in this year's class for what it's worth. It's not the highest top-end college hitter class. We're coming last year. There was a ton of talent in terms of the college position players. You look at a Travis Bazzana, a Charlie Condon, a Nick Kurtz already making waves at the major league level, Cam Smith, J.J. Weatherholt. There was a lot of college hitters in last year's class. For this year, I would say it's a weakness, at least in terms of the top end strength. But Aiva Arquette is someone that I think he projects to hit for a lot of power at the next level. He's got an elite feel for the barrel. It's strong EVs all around, and with the launch angle optimization to support it too. Arquette is someone that I think will hit for power at the next level. The bat to ball skills I think are closer to average. There's nothing super glaring in terms of velocity or his ability to hit spin, but it's really a power-driven profile. And defensively, I was surprised by how he looked over at shortstop. He's a bigger guy. I think he's 6'5", but he moves awfully well there. And I think that he could stick up the middle, but if not, he has the athleticism to potentially move to a corner outfield or a third base. But yeah, I like Aiva Arquette a lot. When you look at the Cardinals organization, it feels like they have a lot of left-handed bats. Aiva Arquette would offer something that, they don't really have, and that's a right-handed thumper. So from that standpoint, I think it would make sense, but just haven't heard his name connected. And to touch on, the whole underslot situation, well, I think this year there isn't that crazy level high-end talent in this year's class. So if they were to save some money with a player that they thought was ranked similarly on their board, to give more flexibility with some of their later picks, as I mentioned at the start of the interview, the Cardinals will be making 4 selections on day 1. So they'll have 3 picks in between rounds 2 to 3. They'll be making their second round selection, which in the past couple of years, due to the Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray signings, they haven't been able to pick in the second round, which is huge for them. And they also have a competitive balanced round B pick. So between the second comp B and third pick, I think there could be, a lot of interesting players in play, and just having that added flexibility in terms of money would be valuable for sure. So I think it would make sense to save some money. I don't know if that's the direction the Cardinals will ultimately go if one of their true, top 4 talents in the class are available for them to pick. But it is interesting to think about in the scenario that, if the draft doesn't unfold the way the Cardinals want, could that be something they consider and they, allocate some of those funds to, the second comp B and third round pick where, you could shoot for multiple high-end, potential first-round talents as opposed to just one. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, and so let's move off the draft a little bit here. Kareem, again, Kareem Hawk with us, a host of Birds on the Farm, contributor there at Cardinals Prospects, and dealing with the Cards as well, so does a little bit of everything. But Kareem, I want to talk about the Cardinals farm system as a whole. Where do you see them stacking up with some other teams, in particular with the division? And look, and I know that the Cardinals you're not going to draft based on need, right? That it's not like the NFL, the NHL, things like that. But what is the biggest need with this system right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, as far as how they rank against some of those other, NL Central teams, I don't think their top-end talent matches with the Brewers. We're looking at, what Jacob Mizorowski is doing at the major league level right now. They've got a couple interesting teenage shortstops. Jesus Made comes to mind. And, I don't think the Cardinals have that level of just top-end talent in their organization. And I would also say the Pittsburgh Pirates, Connor Griffin's looking like one of the top prospects in the game. He's an absolute tool shed. And they also have Bubba Chandler, who's one of the top pitching prospects in the game. So I'm not sure the top-end talent in the organization matches those two teams. But as far as, the Reds, the Cubs, I think they're closer to that sort of range. I think they're similar to those teams in terms of at least top-end talent. And overall, I think the Cardinals are middle of the pack, I would say, farm system right now, probably around that 15 to 20 range, I would assume. But it's hard to know for sure without, evaluating some of those other teams. I focus a lot on, the Cardinals organization, and I don't know every single prospect on, every other team, but yeah, I would assume they're a middle of the pack farm system overall.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the guys I wanted to talk to you about as well is J.J. Weatherholt. Obviously, a guy that they picked basically a year ago now. And he's starting to bang on the door of potentially making it to the majors, just moved up to AAA. So for JJ, when could the Cardinals potentially see him, in your mind, to the big leagues? Maybe early as late this year, next year? What do you think there? And then also, where's he going to play when he gets to the big leagues? Should the Cardinals start thinking about now maybe getting him work at other positions?
Yeah, I think that there's at least a possibility where I could see J.J. Weatherholt at the end of the year when he's not going to exhaust his rookie eligibility for next season. Let's say, the Cardinals are out of the race or maybe potentially in the race and they want to boost to their organization at the end of the season. I could see it as a possibility. J.J. Weatherholt's just impressed me, at every stop. In his AAA debut, he hit a triple and a home run. He's just one of the more professional hitters that I've seen come through the system. He will always take a good at-bat. The pitch recognition is truly special. This is someone that stays within his zone and isn't going to expand if there's breaking pitches away outside of the strike zone. He's going to take them and draw a ton of walks. So Weatherholt really impresses me. I think that there's a level of maturity here that. I think he'll be ready for the major league level a little bit quicker than some other prospects that are more so power oriented, that might not have the best swing decisions and contact ability. So I think Weatherholt is in play to potentially get a chance to get a look at the end of the season, but I think more than likely we'll see him compete for a spot next year in spring training. I'd be surprised if he didn't make the team out of spring training next year. It'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals do in the off season as far as just opening up spots. Is it finally a time to move a Nolan Arenado if they're able to do so? And, as you talked about, where could J.J. Weatherholt end up? I think more than likely he stays on the infield. I haven't heard much chatter about him playing in outfield, but I wouldn't put it against him handling his own in the outfield. He's got the athleticism for it. The kid's just a gamer. It doesn't matter where you put him. He's gonna be a productive player, and we saw that throughout his collegiate career where he played 3 different positions, 3 consecutive seasons. So,
yeah.
Love J.J. Weatherholt. I think this is going to be someone that is a big time contributor for this team next year. And it'll be interesting to see if he gets that shot at the end of the season, but I think more than likely we're looking at a 2026 debut early in the season.
All right. want to play you a little audio from last year. We're going to talk about the catching position for the Cardinals. We were discussing Ivan Herrera last year and talking about, okay, why aren't the Cardinals giving, him more of a shot? Well, kind of similar this year in some aspects. Now, obviously it sounds like because of some injuries, he's going to focus more on DH duties the rest of the way. But I wanted you to listen to this real quick from last year.
I understand how Pedro Pages might fit the prototypical mold of a backup catcher more than Ivan Herrera, but I still think Herrera is a more valuable player, all things considered. People are fixating on the throwing ability, like I said. I do think that's something he's going to get better at, but I think he's a fine defensive catcher, to be honest.
All right, that was last year with Herrera. Look, I still think some of his things with catching has been overblown. We've talked about it last year. Is Pedro Pages really the guy? I mean, in my opinion, he's a backup guy. But look, Jimmy Crooks, Leonardo Bernal, Raynel Rodriguez, I mean, could they leapfrog him? I mean, I guess my question is, who is the catcher of the future for the Cardinals? Kareem? With all these guys coming up, I mean, again, Pages, I know the organization likes him, but look, he's not a starter in my opinion. So what happens with the catcher position going forward?
Yeah, I don't think I'm as bullish on Herrera sticking at that catcher spot as I was last year. I think, he's taken a little bit of a step back in terms of his defense, and it doesn't seem like the Cardinals are awfully bullish on, his ability to stick there. We'll see what happens in the offseason. Could we see a position change? Could he end up in a corner outfield or first base? Wilson Contreras is still here, but if they ended up moving him, I don't know. I'd like to see the Cardinals extrapolate more value in there out of a young player that's looking like one of the best right-handed bats that's come through the organization than just, slotting him in the DH spot. So it'll be interesting to see what they do on that end. As far as prospects in the system, I think Leonardo Bernal stands out to me as the guy I would say has the highest shot of being that, everyday sort of catcher. I've been thoroughly impressed by, the improvements that he's made this year. With the bat, the bat to ball numbers have taken a step up. He's making more impactful contact in the air. He's getting off the ground a little bit more defensively. We talked about how Herrera might not have the strongest throwing arm. Well, Leonardo Bernal has gone down. He's put up some of the most impressive caught stealing numbers in the minor leagues the past few years. So I don't think we have that same sort of issue. Another guy, Jimmy Crooks is someone that is similar to Pedro Pages in the fashion that, pitchers are going to absolutely love throwing to this guy. He does such a great job at just understanding a pitcher's strengths. We had Cooper Jerpy on our podcast last offseason, and, he raved about Jimmy Crooks and, said that, he's such a talented defensive catcher and one that really knows how to maximize a pitcher's strength. So he's another guy to throw around. But I think that Leonardo Bernal, from an overall standpoint, the offense, the defense, and the projectability for a guy that's still so young, my bet would be that, he'd be the next guy in line to be a potential everyday sort of catcher for the Cardinals organization. But at the same time, he's at Double-A, so I don't think we can say that with 100% confidence just yet, but really bullish on the player.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I like Bernal a lot, but it makes you wonder, look, trade deadline and again off season, maybe the Cardinals deal from their, excess and as far as their catching depth. We'll see. It'll be interesting when this trade deadline comes and passes, but a lot of things for the Cardinals to work on, and obviously we'll see how the new regime decides to do things. So we're excited for the draft coming up again tomorrow, and thanks so much for your analysis. Ran out of time, Kareem, but I really appreciate you joining us today and giving some good information.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Rusty. Can't wait to do this again next year.
Yeah, let's make it a yearly thing, right? That'd be awesome. All right, thanks, Kareem. Have a good one, man.
You too.
All right, that is Kareem Hawk. Appreciate him. Good stuff from Kareem. Look, he's a very informative guy. He wants to get his takes out there, so Appreciate that. So just ran along. Some other questions I wanted to get to, but just ran out of time here. But thanks to Kareem again. Again, you can check him out, host on Birds on the Farm podcast, also dealing with the Cards podcast at different times. And then he's a contributor at the CardinalsProspects.com, focuses on the Cardinals prospects. So